Honorable members, enough, and shall we pray? Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic, endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the wills of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the effort of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thoughts, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, let me invite you to item number 4. Item number 4 in today's order paper. That is correction of votes and proceedings. We will begin from page 1 of correction of votes. Page 1, votes and proceedings. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page number 5. Page 6. Honorable member, are you on your feet? Page 7. Yes, Honorable Deputy Majority Whip.
Speaker, on page 7, item number 8, and then number 10, the Honorable Member for Hohoi and Nsawame Dujiri, they seek permission and the form was presented to the Speaker, but because Speaker was unavoidable absent, I think it hasn't been captured. So if they
come again.
Speaker, on page 7, item 8, the Honorable Member for Hohoi, and then item 10, that is the Majority Chief Whip, they've seek permission. The absence with permission, the form was signed by me and it was given to the Speaker. I don't know why it's
But it didn't come to me. Incidentally, I'm responsible for that.
Speaker, respectful answer. Yesterday that we were informed that you are in charge. It was sent to the Speaker's office on Friday.
Well. Table, please kindly take note of that. Yes, Honorable Member for North Tongue.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I seek your guidance on this matter. I would have thought that your office must approve it, because if we say that once a form is filled, it should automatically reflect. I'm not sure that that would be helpful. We should complete the process. You fill the form, it goes through leadership. The Speaker must grant the approval, because it's not automatic. The Speaker may say that I'm not approving the trip. You know, it's not automatic. So for my colleague, the Deputy Whip, to say that because he submitted a form, then it should automatically reflect here that they are absent with permission. Then what if when the Speaker's office finally works on the forms, he declines one or two of them or doesn't approve at all? So I'm not too sure that it's an automatic, approval, and so it should reflect here. When he himself admits that the Speaker, at the time he sent it, the Speaker was not available and it has not been worked on. So I think that the table office has done the right thing. At least for yesterday, it was not approved. Probably from today or tomorrow, it will then, if the acting Speaker approves it, then it will reflect accordingly. Yeah.
Speaker, I think my colleague didn't get me right. For Honorable Arnaud Dompre, he's at the Pan-African Parliament, and he went with the first Deputy Speaker. So my argument here is that until yesterday that we were informed by table office of the unavoidable absence of Mr. Speaker, and the second Deputy Speaker is taking charge. So the form was not sent to the second Deputy Speaker, but rather sent to Mr. Speaker himself. And these are parliamentary travels approved because they are at Pan-African parliaments, and I don't think it should be a problem. I'm just drawing the attention of the Speaker so that table office...
Well, honourable members, I think, I believe leadership might look into this and see how to address this issue, because I appreciate the concerns raised by honourable member for North Tongue. So I think leadership will look into these matters and see how best to address it. Yes, honourable member for...
Mr. Speaker, this is a bit different, but I think that as Speaker, and I know that as acting Speaker, you have the full powers of a Speaker, and I'm very, very happy about that. Mr. Speaker, we may need your direction on this, especially with conferences. I do know that before you attend a conference, you have to apply to the Speaker. And so when the Speaker approves that A, B, C, D can attend the conference, do you need individually to then apply again to the Speaker for permission to travel? I thought that once Speaker approves that you can embark on that trip, it is implied. So, Mr. Speaker, you may want to just guide us on that. If you want leadership to take it, fine, but so that we don't have a duplicity of what we're doing. Thank you very much, Rising Officer Speaker.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I have some issues raised by my colleague that when the approval is given by Mr. Speaker, automatically the member is deemed to have traveled or to have attended the program. Approval can be given all right, but some members may decide not to attend the program. So when the member decides to attend the program or workshop, that member must submit the form indicating that I'm traveling. And even at this austerity period, that's my concern. The government just did indicate to us that they are going to cut back some foreign travel. And at this period, members of parliament lead in leadership.
Yes, honorable members, I think, like I said earlier on, I think leadership will have to look into these matters. And what Honorable John Jinapo has also raised, I think we'll put it on record and see how best we can address those. So we'll move on to page 8. Yes, Honorable Member for Southern.
Speaker, thank you. Speaker, I was in the House yesterday, but I'm captured as having been absent. Item number 25 on page 8. To be honest, I forgot to sign it. I forgot to sign, to be honest, but I was in the house. Thank you.
So, honorable members, table take note, but I've been repeatedly asking members to please sign the register. Please, when you come, try and sign the register. So you move to page 9. Now, page 10. And finally, page 11. And finally, page 12. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 5th sitting held on Tuesday, 1st November 2022 are adopted as the true records of proceedings. Leadership, are we moving to statement, or we will do something else before we come to statement?
Speaker, with your leave, if we can vary the order of business and move to item 6, commencement of public business, so that we can do motions 6 and 7.
Very well. So, honorable members, let me respectfully invite you to page 2. Page 2, item listed 6 on today's paper, that is at the commencement of public business. Motion. If the chairman of the committee is not here, the vice chairman may take the motion. So, honorable member for Shaman, you may take the motion. Yes, honorable member, let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I wish to present this report on behalf of the chairman of the committee, who is unavoidably absent. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Employment and Social Welfare, which report is on the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC. Mr. Speaker, I wish to...
Yes. Hold on, honorable member for Shaman, hold on.
Just to help the honorable vice chairman, move the motion 8, as it appears on page 4. Then you can proceed to present the committee's report. But I want to hear the motion being moved, not substituted with your own words. The motion as it is and advertised on the other paper. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to move the motion paper as appeared at page 2, number 6 of today's order paper. In doing so, the report I wish to present the report of the Committee on Employment and Social Welfare in respect of Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. Mr. Speaker, I will touch on the highlights of the report as presented, but pray that the Hazard Department captures the entire report as read. Mr. Speaker, the committee is grateful to the Honourable Minister for Public Enterprises, Honourable Joseph Kujo, and the SIGA Director General for their assistance in respect of the work that has been done by the Committee on Employment. Mr. Speaker, the GNPC as an organization has the mission of leading a sustainable exploration, development, production, and disposal of the petroleum resources. Mr. Speaker, the committee called witnesses and relied on the accounts submitted, the account of 2019 and 2020. Well, at page 4 of the report, it indicated that the assessment indicated that GNPC's liquidity situation was moderate, with short-term assets matching its short-term liabilities. Mr. Speaker, the importance of GNPC cannot be overemphasized. And among other things, the observations of the committee, which looked at the finances of GNPC, observed that to improve efficiency, Parliament should rein in the quasi-fiscal and corporate social responsibility activities of GNPC and enact a law that will ensure that the transparency and accountability is reflected in the changing dynamics of the oil and gas industry. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee believes that Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, the national oil company, is a strategic company which controls about a third of the total oil and gas industry, and that if Parliament is very critical with its activities, it can ensure that we have a very effective management which would bring very positive results than they are doing now. Now they are performing moderately, and they can do better. So, on this slide, Mr. Speaker, the committee recommends that the House approves the report. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. Honourable members, the motion has been moved. Let me now invite the ranking to second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion
ably tabled by the Vice Chairman of the committee on behalf of the committee. But, Mr. Speaker, in seconding the committee, I will want to draw the House attention to the fact that the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation is one of the very strategic assets of the Ghanaian nation state. Mr. Speaker, GNPC is one of those organizations whose impact on our body politic goes beyond just the commercial. GNPC is the agency of state that we have elected to represent Ghanaian interests in the oil and gas sector. And therefore, issues pertaining to GNPC are of critical national importance. Mr. Speaker, it is in this light that I want to draw the attention of the committee to the poor state of GNPC. Attention of the House to the poor state of GNPC. And if there is a word worse than poor, I would have used it. Mr. Speaker, if you look at page 6, paragraph 31 of your committee's report, the report states that the gearing ratio, and this is extremely important in finance, the gearing ratio of GNPC rose from 35% in 2018 to 59% in 2020, which simply stated means GNPC is highly indebted to other partners. The gearing ratio is the relationship between your asset base and your loan portfolio or your debt. And therefore, when you are heavily in debt, such as GNPC is, a cause for serious introspection. Mr. Speaker, we have allowed GNPC to veer from its core operations into areas which are better performed by other organizations. Yes, I am the first to admit that GNPC needs a social license to operate, and the social license will include corporate social responsibility. That is critical in the extractive industry. You need the buy-in, especially of host communities, to operate. However, that should not supersede your core mission of returning good returns, good dividends to the nation state for the equity you hold on behalf of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, consistently, GNPC has had to borrow. When you borrow for capital expenditure, when you borrow for cash calls, when you borrow to expand production, there is then a belief that the proceeds from the production will service the loan. But GNPC goes beyond that. We borrow even for administrative expenses. And again, GNPC has gone ahead to form subsidiary companies without the permission of this House, and siphons of revenue that should go into the petroleum funds into this offshore company, bypassing the supervision of this House. Mr. Speaker, it is high time this House took a second look at the operations of GNPC. Our committee's remit is just on the financials. Mr. Speaker, the financials don't speak well of GNPC. The future is bleak for GNPC and therefore for Ghana if we do not if we do not insist that GMPC stays the straight and narrow path in its operations. It is important, Mr. Speaker, if you look at paragraph 40, the expenditure of GMPC, we are saying that the committee observed that GMPC engages in activities outside its core mandate, which either do not produce commercial value for the organization or compromise efficiency and utilization of GMPC's revenue. Mr. Speaker, we will urge that from a purely financial analysis, GMPC, without injection of new funds, GMPC is on the brink of bankruptcy. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, in supporting the motion, I will want to call the attention of this House for the need to bring GMPC, even if it's a committee of the whole, to bring GMPC before this House for a more critical scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I support the motion.
Yes, let me now come to the chairman of Mines and Energy Committee, Honorable Member for Abuakwa South.
I'm grateful to you, Honorable Speaker, to make a few comments regarding this all-important report at the behest of the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare, and State Enterprises. Honorable Speaker, as my colleague Dr. Donko has rightly said, GMPC can be the cash cow of our economy if it should have proper alignment. I agree. One challenge of GMPC, which we shouldn't ignore, is the hard fact that monies due GMPC can be taken from them by the Ministry of Finance for other purposes. There's this understanding that relating to the state companies owned by the state, the monies of the companies are not theirs, and that the Ministry of Finance, whenever there is a challenge, can do some maneuvering and take over the monies, and probably in good time, these monies will return to the companies. There have been instances where the monies were never returned to the companies, and the consequence is clear, that that state institution will be deprived of the needed capital to do what is expected of it. It's one observation that we have seen as the Committee on Mines and Energy, and we want this thing addressed properly. One other factor which we should pay regard to is what Honorable Dr. Kwamina Donko said. Anytime a state institution deviates from its core mandates and is entangled in other matters, apart from those, decisions being ultra-virus, the statute that gave birth to the state institution, monies could be wasted. So it's about time that we whip them into line. That your mandates have been clearly defined by law. And I didn't want to quote PNDC Law 64, because the mandates are very clear. When you go into other undertakings, especially without parliamentary approval, the tendency is that you might have some serious problems. And I think this is what we are also trying to do as a committee, to whip them into line. Honorable Speaker, given the financial situation of GMPC, I am of the humble view that they are going to move at a tortoise pace in delivering their mandates. There is a huge area of Ghana's land space. It's called the Voltaire Basin. Honorable Speaker, it is said that we have huge reserves of crude oil and gas, not offshore, but on our lands. And I've observed the kind of small amounts of capital that they bring when they want us to approve their work program. And you could see that given the monies and the allocations which are coming in, trickles, I do not foresee a situation in which GNPC will be able to work on the Volta Basin, which I'm educated has more crude oil and gas than what we are experiencing now. Right, Honourable Speaker, it is imperative that GNPC should find credible international partners or even local, investors for the purpose of accelerating the development of crude oil and gas in the Volta Basin. And I'm of the humble view that if this is so done and there's an acceleration of that, our people will get good employment and it's going to help the nation so well. Apart from the problem of crude oil, which is now an international issue. Finally, Honourable Speaker, there has been some serious assertions that some subsidiary companies have been set up by GNPC without reference to this great house. I'm tempted to believe that you needn't come to this house to seek approval to set up a subsidiary company. Insofar as you are a statutory body and you believe that you need a vehicle to pilot your activities, you could do so. But a matter which has come to the fore is that monies intended for this nation is in some foreign clients. They are talking about offshore funds. I thought my good friend, Dr. Donko, Honorable Dr. Donko, was not going to speak on this matter because the committee has decided that we are bringing before the whole committee the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Energy, and GNPC to come and explain the kind of permutations that went into these arrangements and some money is found itself offshore. So this is a matter of great concern and it's been penciled because of the travel arrangement of the Minister of Finance as well as Energy and then also the GNPC Managing Director. The meeting has been deferred. But for sure, your committee is alive to its responsibilities. There's no dispute about it. We're going to interrogate issues and then bring a good report for the consideration of the House. I thank you for the space you've given me, although I'm not a member of the committee, and continue to be gracious towards me when it is necessary. I'm grateful to you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, let him come. Once the chairman of a committee has spoken, let him give the ranking also the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, let me commend the committee for a very, very detailed job done. This is comprehensive, but there's a lot of meat in this report. And like the Honourable Dr. Donko did indicate, they focus on the financial health and financial well-being of the GNPC. The GNPC was established as our national oil company to, one, hold our interest in the oil fields, i.e. the carried and participating interest, and also look at the possibility of having commercial interest. And so GNPC is a strategic company. If you go to Saudi Aramco, you go to Petrobras and all those other national oil companies, they are doing a very, very good job for their country. And so in as much as I agree that GNPC may be veering off their core duty, if we can reposition GNPC and it becomes a profit-making entity, they can even give some dividend and some money to government to put into such other activities that we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, I'm very, very worried about the state of GMPC reading this report. And if you look at page 4, it starts with the profitability assessment of the company. If you look at the gross profit margin, which is the gross profit expressed as a percentage of your total sales, it has reduced from 50% in 2018 to 26% in 2019 to 0.3% in 2020. This is serious. From 50% to less than 1%. If you look at the operating profit, which is also your operating profit expressed as a percentage of sales, it has moved from 28% to negative 19.23%. And your operating profit is mostly your total sales less the cost of sales. And so it means that compared to what they sold and what they bought, they've made a loss. Return on capital employed, that is the capital that you employ, everybody expects to make some return from the money that you employ into the organization. They are making a negative 16. So you are even better off putting that capital in treasury bills. Because you invest in order to make some profit. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the current ratio, and the current ratio would normally look at your current liability and your current assets. Because within a year, you ought to sell and you also ought to pay. Those that goes beyond a year are known as long term. But the current ones has to do with what happens within the year. It was 1.08, which means that you can cover your current liability and still have something. Today is 0.88. So when you take your total current assets and sell it and you go to pay your total current liability, you cannot meet that. Such a company is bound to collapse. The worst of all is even the asset test, because the asset test ratio deals with cash and cash equivalent. It means that today, if you move into GMPC and make noise that you want your money, bearing in mind that money doesn't like noise, bearing in mind that she can't pay the day, Mr. Speaker. Yes, because money doesn't like noise. She can't pay the day. But with this ratio, asset test ratio, the small noise you make on Mr. Speaker, I tell you. In the same way, in as much as he can't pay the day, with this ratio, you can also say that he can't pay J. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a serious matter. This company is on the verge of collapse, and something ought to be done about it. Dr. Donko talked about the gearing. The gearing is a ratio between your debt and what you have contributed as equity. If you are highly geared, it means that you are taking too much debt and too much loan. But you don't just end with the gearing. You have to go to, and for me, the committee did a very, very good job, Mr. Speaker. You have to go to, there's a portion, yes, accounts receivable and accounts payable. Because in as much as you are looking at your gearing, you are also looking at those who are supposed to pay you. Are they paying you on time? Now the accounts receivable has moved from 108 days, which means that on the average, it takes 108 days for those who owe you to pay you, to 357 days. So in the whole year, they won't even pay you. Yeah. That's the true situation. And then you then go to accounts payable, which is to say you also owe people. So within a year, how many days does it take for you to pay? They've moved to 447 days. So it can no longer even qualify as accounts payable because you've moved beyond the financial year. This is precarious. The chairman of the committee, my very good friend, indefatigable, hardworking, committed, and venerable Honorable Atachia, made a fundamental statement, and I associate with him. Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 2, subsidiaries of GMPC, GMPC Exloco, that is 1. Prestia Sankofa, 2. GMPC Foundation, 3. Mole Motel, 4. Nowhere is Jubilee Holdings mentioned here. Nowhere is Jubilee Holdings mentioned here. The minority therefore demand that 100 million that has been transferred by the finance minister to Jubilee Holdings as captured in the PIAC report, that money must, with immediate effect, be paid back into the Petroleum Holding Fund as envisaged in the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. There's a certain explanation that GNPC borrowed money. Act 919, the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act, states categorically in Section 15, Section 32, that before GNPC can borrow such an amount, they need parliamentary approval. They don't have any parliamentary approval. Mr. Speaker, these are serious matters. And through our leader, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, we intend to elevate this particular issue to its highest level. We cannot allow the nation's resources to be dissipated in such a manner. Mr. Speaker, on that note, let me once again commend the committee and to recommend to the House that we take a particular interest in the financial well-being and the financial health of the GNPC going forward. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
Yes, let him come to Honourable Member for Manson Kwanta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion on the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. Mr. Speaker, GNPC is responsible for the production of crude oil and natural gas. Mr. Speaker, let us look at the mandate of the corporation quickly and make my case. If you look at paragraph 11, it states GNPC's mandate under PNDC Law 64 of 1983, now PNDC Act 64, is to undertake petroleum exploration, development, production, and disposal. Among the objectives of the corporation are to promote the exploration and the orderly and planned development of the petroleum resource of Ghana, to ensure that Ghana obtains the greatest possible benefits from the development of its petroleum resources, to obtain the effective ease transfer of Ghana of appropriate technology relating to petroleum operations, to ensure training of citizens of Ghana and the development of natural capacities in all aspects of petroleum operations. And the last one is to ensure that petroleum operations are conducted in such a manner as to prevent adverse effects on the environment, resources, and people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the committee looked into the operations of GNPC, and you look at paragraph 13, 14, and the others, you see that the profitability of Ghana Petroleum Corporation was not all that bad per assessment of the committee. For example, when you look at the revenues, in 2018, the corporation was making over $400 million US dollars. In 2019, it was $349 million, and in 2020, they made $198 million. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the assessment, the corporation was making some good profits, gross and margins, net margins. However, in 2018, there was a problem. At the same time, liquidity position of GNPC, or look at it, we saw that it was all that but was satisfactory. The last issue about the financial performance of the corporation is the gearing. Yes, indeed, the gearing of the GNPC rose to a level which is challenging. However, we must take note that a gearing company doesn't mean that it is a dead horse or should be written off. When you are operating at good profitable level and you pay off your fixed interest, any extra income that comes to the company goes to the owners. It means that fixed interest does not share any excess income after they have been paid their due. The problem is that the moment you have your profits and revenue going down so much that you cannot pay your interest, then the risk of being liquidated or going in for any sort of selling your asset to pay off becomes a challenge. However, looking at Ghana Petroleum Corporation, I want us to look at 4 important items that you have to look into before we make any conclusion about GNPC. One, when you look at the mandate, it was talking about technology. Then the expertise. And the other thing I want us to look at is the external and internal factors, particularly the external factors. GNPC is competing with other petroleum industries outside Ghana. It tells you that the competition will demand effectiveness and efficiency. Anything short of efficiency and effectiveness will put you off. And today, in the petrol industry, the greatest thing that you have to look at is technology. Let's ask ourselves, are we putting the necessary funds to help GNPC to get the necessary technology? Are we putting in the efforts to get the new and the modern aspect of machinery that will help prepare GNPC to compete very well with the other international companies? Are we developing expertise as required by the mandate? It tells us that we have to reposition GNPC with the necessary funding so that GNPC can stand on its feet in terms of technology. If the capacity is not coming from the shareholders, then GNPC will not have any choice but to search for other source of capital, which is the debt capital. And therefore, if it comes that way, the country should rally behind GNPC to secure this necessary funding to put the company at the appropriate level in terms of technology. Expertise. Are we developing our expertise, or we are always relying on foreigners? The moment you rely on foreign expertise, it means that they take a chunk of your profits or your revenues. It is time that Ghana invests in its own manpower to ensure you have the necessary personnel to help us to develop our industries. The next issue has to do with the political issues. Politics in the field of petroleum is very challenging and very serious. Today, talk of the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, petroleum has become a political tool when there are sanctions. So on that note, if you are coming from our part of the world and you don't position yourself very well in terms of political atmosphere and then political manipulations, it means that you are going to subject your industry into a sort of risk. So on that note, it is time that I'm calling on this house to ensure we put our heads together as people to put in the proper strategies in terms of technology, in terms of politics, to ensure that any time that there is any kind of external factors in terms of these wars going on, in terms of the politics that goes with it, the sanctions and everything, Ghana will be very well positioned to also make sure that we take our pound on the flesh when it comes to petroleum. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I may want to say that it is the Ghanaian people who have to take our destiny in terms of the petroleum industry to put in the necessary mechanism to raise the necessary capital, ensure that you have the good technology, ensure you have the good expertise, ensure that you position yourself when it comes to the external challenges, so that you be competitive in the industry and you can reap better to help our country in terms of employment and revenues and taxes. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I will support the assent of the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Leader, let him take one, then I come to leadership. Let him come to a champion. Honorable champion, let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to the report on the floor. Mr. Speaker, I want to make a few comments on the report. First, referring to page 7 of the report, the committee is telling us that amount owed GNPC amounts to $603 million, and there's a payment of $212 million, which translates into about 35.3%. But, Mr. Speaker, the committee went further to give us the details of the debt. They mentioned Government of Ghana, 23 million, Ministry of Finance, Tamaya Refinery, GNPC, and the rest. Since they are telling us the agencies which owe GNPC, and you are saying Government of Ghana, and which agency is that? Government of Ghana. Is it the presidency or which agency? Because they've given us the details. Ministry of Finance, Tamaya Refinery, Ghana Gas Company, Ministry of Energy, Priority Deficiency Gas. But I said, again, Government of Ghana is also owing you. Which agency is that? So the report should tell us which agency at the government of Ghana which is owing them that 55 million Ghana cedis. So there will be clarity on it. They want further to state that GMPC is deviating from its core mandate. They are complaining about it, but they refuse to tell us the type of activity undertaken by GMPC, which they are complaining about. Is it AstroTurf? Is it the money they gave to some chief? Which one are you complaining about? You can't just complain and want us to understand what you are telling us, because we did not attend the committee meeting with you. Give us the full details so that we follow through to make sure that the right thing is done. The chairman of the Energy Committee made a very good proposal that they can seek for international investment to support their operation. But if any investor sees this balance sheet, nobody will put his money in GMPC. No company will do this. So these are some of the things the committee should help us to understand, so that exercising oversight responsibility will help you to make sure the right thing is done, so there will be value for money. Mr. Speaker, with these few comments, I think next time the committee should give us more details so that we can also support the work of the committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. Let me come to Western Region Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the report is well written, and we need to support the committee in accepting their recommendations. Mr. Speaker, you know that GMPC is headquartered in Tema, but all their production comes from the Western region. And therefore, when a report like this is presented, it is very important that I also make a contribution. Mr. Speaker, if we take the report, I've heard other speakers bash GMPC, but you can see from the report that in some areas, they are doing well, and we need to commend them for it. Mr. Speaker, if we take the assessment of short-term solvency, what they say is that the assessment indicates that GMPC's liquidity was moderate. So clearly, it's not a bad case. Mr. Speaker, if you also look at the issue of inventory, they go on to say that GMPC maintained a very low inventory, and that is very key and very good management practice, and I believe that we need to commend them for it. If you also look at paragraph 27, talking about efficiency assessments, the last statement says the corporation also maintained a good working capital management strategy. So clearly, in some aspects, GMPC has been doing very well. So we cannot all be talking about problems after problems after problems. Because in some years, in 2018, they did well. In 2019, they did well. Unfortunately, in 2020, that's where I believe that some of the difficulties came. And I believe that we need to stand on this and ask ourselves what happened in 2021, what happened in 2022. Then we can then advise them what they need to be doing. Because GMPC is a very important strategic national asset. And it is very important that whilst we bash them for the wrong things, we need to also encourage them to do the right things more, so they can use that to balance or offset the problem. On the issue of core mandates, it's one of the areas I support in this report. That areas like Motel Limited, Pristia Sankofa, and the likes, it is important that we take them off GMPC and give them to other entities to manage, instead of giving them, because they tend to be sinking so much money into these operations, and we are not getting the profit that we need to get from them. And I believe that these are strategic assets that can grow on their own. If you come to Western region, a lot of the gold mines are doing well. Goldfields is doing well. Anglo-Gold Ashanti is doing well. Pesos is doing well. Adamus is doing well. Why can't Sankofa be doing well? And every time GMPC tend to be putting a lot of money to make it survive. So I believe that on the issue of taking some of the other smaller companies from GMPC for them to work on their core mandate is key. And I believe it's one area this report should go to them, or Speaker, to direct them to look at it strategically to make sure that we win these companies off GMP's core mandate of exploring and producing oil for the good people of this country. With these viewers, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Let me now come to leadership. Honourable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you very much for the adoption of the report of the Committee on Employment on the performance of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, to refer you to paragraph 11, page 2, which provides that GNPC's mandate under PNDC Law 64 is to undertake petroleum exploration, development, production, and disposal. Among the objectives of the corporation are, Mr. Speaker, and to warn that Ghana will need to take a certain position into the future about the future of GNPC and related entities in our hydrocarbon space. Because, Mr. Speaker, the world is shifting, and shifting very fast from fossil fuel, responding to the green climate needs of the world. The energy transition is on, and therefore we should not expect that what we get from our current interests and other things will continue to be so in the foreseeable future. But, Mr. Speaker, to support the Honorable Atachi and the ranking member, when you look at the subsidiaries of GNPC as listed in page 2 to 3, conspicuously lost is the Jubilee Holding Company. Jubilee Holding Company. And, Mr. Speaker, we are requesting the Committee on Mines and Energy and Committee on Employment to probe further, because the PIAC report 2022 semi-annual report recommends that the proceeds of lifting by Jubilee Oil should be paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund, as the committee is convinced that the proceeds forms part of Ghana's petroleum revenue. So whoever is keeping this money or have diverted this money must return the money and treat it as part of Ghana's petroleum revenue, which is about $100 million. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's significant that Jubilee Holding is not listed as a subsidiary. So how come that they will be holding on to up to $100 million of state resources? That, Mr. Speaker, means that we demand more transparency and more accountability in the utilization of these petroleum resources. Mr. Speaker, I would associate myself further with the comments which was made by the Deputy Ranking as to the future positioning of GNPC generally, and particularly they reducing some activities they do outside their core mandate. With this, Mr. Speaker, I support the committee's report. Safe to end again with page 7 to 8. So, committee, what happens when you list those who owe? Ministry of Finance 55 million, Ministry of Energy current, and I think that Committee on Mines and Energy, you must take this up during budget hearing. How come that the Ministry of Energy current account has a deficit of $16,525,000, that as money they owe to GNPC? We should understand that. At what point did they get the authority to allow this to happen and sit in the account of the Ministry of Energy? What was it used for? We should demand what the money was essentially used for. And then we are told that there is priority deficiency gas, $67 million. Then you have VRA, $99 million. So, Mr. Speaker, I speak in support of the adoption of the motion. And then on page 8, Mr. Speaker, the last paragraph, it reads, to improve efficiency, Parliament should rein in the quasi-fiscal and corporate social responsibility activities of GNPC and enact a new law for the corporation. Parliament, we don't initiate legislation. So if you are directing that the executive must take particular interest in bringing a new bill, say so, because we cannot on our own, even though we can do so, but this will not encourage under private members' motion. It should not be Parliament. It should be the executive or the president being encouraged that we need a comprehensive review of legislation which allows for deeper transparency and accountability. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Let me now come to the majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the call for the adoption of the report of the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises on the annual financial performance of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation for the years 2019 and 2020. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important to relate to the issue raised by the Minister for the Western Region. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is very clear in, I think, Article 34 plus 6, I should think. Mr. Speaker, with respect, if I should quote that, I think it's Article 34. Article 34, is it? No, Article 35. Article 35 clause 6E, which provides that towards the achievement of the objectives stated in clause 5 of this article, the state shall take appropriate measures to, and he says, ensure that whenever practicable, the headquarters of a government or public institution offering any services is situated in an area within any region, taking into account the resources and potentials of the region and the area. So, the Speaker, I think the language is unambiguous. What we are having from GNPC, in fact, our oil exploration and exploitation, the overwhelming proportion is coming from the Western region. Has the time come for us as a nation to have a second look at this? And in the nearest foreseeable future, certainly it's going to be like that. In terms of petrol, diesel, and even gas, Mr. Speaker. So I think that the issue raised by the Western Regional Minister should be one that should engage the attention of all of us. Mr. Speaker, the core mandate of GNPC, we are told, and indeed it's been listed on page 2 of the report, which says they exist to promote the exploration and the orderly and planned development of petroleum resources of Ghana, to ensure that Ghana obtains the greatest possible benefits from the development of its petroleum resources, to obtain the effective transfer to Ghana of appropriate technology relating to petroleum operations, to ensure the training of citizens of Ghana and the development of national capabilities in all aspects of petroleum operations. And finally, to ensure that petroleum operations are conducted in such a manner as to prevent adverse effects on the environment, resources, and the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, these are the core responsibilities. Today, we are told that the GNPC has branched into other areas. The Speaker, whereas the principle may be good, because perhaps they want to ensure that whatever the monies that come to them, they invest to attract greater profits to the country. So I may share in the principle. However, Mr. Speaker, the antecedents of GNPC itself do not support this endeavor at all. Times were when GNPC branched into the making of salt, the principle was good. But, Mr. Speaker, it cost this nation such huge expenditures with very little returns. Indeed, we're making losses. GNPC at a point in time branched into cocoa production. All these endeavors, Mr. Speaker, did not yield anything positive to this country. So I'm saying that the principle may be good, but the antecedents do not support this. So GNPC should be immediately encouraged to depart from this path. Because gold winning in this country, very profitable, how come that Prestia Sankofa Gold Limited is not making much profit? Mr. Speaker, the Molly Hotel, I've been there, and I was there incidentally with the minority leader. We both enjoyed the facility. I didn't know that GNPC, it was that controls 60%. Mr. Speaker, even though the facility is good, it's not yielding the requisite returns. So why do we continue to do this and let the economy and indeed the finances of this country suffer? So, Mr. Speaker, I do share in the opinion expressed by people who have spoken before me that GNPC should be encouraged to depart from that path. The point is, the mandate number 2 provides that they are to ensure that Ghana obtains the greatest possible benefit from the development of its petroleum resources. The question to ask, are we having the best possible benefits from these investments of GNPC? Certainly no. And why should they be pushing on that path? The Speaker, the minority leader has spoken to the fact that we are in an era of energy transition. That is the de-emphasizing the usage of fossil fuels. What it means is that if we do not explore to exploit our resources now, Speaker, 15, 20 years from now, we may be confronted with stranded assets. They become more or less useless. And that is why it's important for us to explore, to exploit the resources that we have now, the petroleum resources that we have now. Mr. Speaker, I'm not in any way suggesting that maybe 15, 20 years from now, fossil fuels may not be in use. They may be in use in many areas, apart from maybe vehicles and so on and so forth. But the production of energy using petroleum resources to propel our thermal plants in the next foreseeable future, it may be there. However, what we should recognize, Mr. Speaker, is that the Emirates, they produce fossil fuels. But today, they are going nuclear. They are going nuclear. And they have commissioned, indeed, Abu Dhabi has commissioned 4 nuclear plants. Just the past 1.5 years. Producing in total over 12,000 megawatts of power. 2 of them are due to be commissioned next year to bring it up to 6. The total number of the plants that they are consulting is 8. So, Mr. Speaker, we should be careful. We are moving out. We are moving out of this. And it is why what we have, we must exploit. Indeed, their own fossil fuels, they are not abandoning them. They are producing them and storing them. Because they know that for the time being, we still will continue to need fossil fuels. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe we should not abandon them, but immediately we should focus on the exploitation. So we must explore to exploit. Having said so, Mr. Speaker, the committee has indicated to us the key challenges that GNP still has. I think the Committee on Mines and Energy, as been proposed by the Honorable Echampong, should perform their oversight responsibilities. This report is about the profitability or otherwise of GNPC. That's what we are discussing. But in terms of the operations and activities of GNPC, the oversight rests with the Committee on Energy and Mines. And so I will entreat the chairman, who is not listening to me now. I will entreat the chairman to program to meet with GNPC and indeed come to us with a report about their operations and activities. Because this one, by the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises, just delves into the profitability or otherwise of the corporation. You provide oversight on the conduct of the activities, and I'm entreating you to immediately engage with them. Let us know problems existing in the conduct of their activities. And we are told about some accounts that have been set up by them and so on and so forth. We should investigate further to brief this House, and if there are any defects or deficiencies in the conduct of their business, we stand them ready to bring them into line. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the space granted.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is, as many as are in favour of the motion listed 6 in today's order paper, say aye. All those against, say no. Honourable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We move to motion number 7. May I invite the Vice Chairman of the committee to move the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion captured number 7 at page 2. Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable House adopts the report of the Committee on Employment and Social Welfare, State Enterprises, on the audited account of the Industrial Holding Company Limited, GHOC Series, for the 2020 and 2019 financial years. Mr. Speaker, I pray that the Hansa Department captures the entire report as having been read in extenso. Mr. Speaker, I wish to touch on some few aspects of the report. The Committee on Employment on the 10th of May 2020 went into the financials of GHOC Series. At paragraph 7, in exercising the oversight of the committee, we looked at the financial health, solvency of the GHOC Series. Mr. Speaker, at paragraph 10, we have listed that GHOC Series produces about 25 different alcoholic and non-alcoholic products, including Herb Afrique, Mandingo, Castle Bridge,
Castle Schnapps, Takai, Sorrento, among others. Look at the financial health of Gehog Viserys. At paragraph 13, we posited that Gehog Viserys, Mr. Speaker, had a gross profit of about 25%. The lamentation of Gehog is that state enterprises have failed to patronize the products of Gehog. It is the findings of the committee that Ghanaians patronize made in Ghana goods, particularly when Gehog has been a game player for a very long time. The products are dependable and reliable. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the committee believes that Gehog is potentially profitable. So having thoroughly, Mr. Speaker, gone through the financials of Gehog Viserys, the committee recommends that this House adopts its report. Respectfully submitted, my Lord. Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Let me invite the ranking to second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion on the floor, motion number 7 on the order paper. And in seconding the motion, Mr. Speaker, I will want to state that Gehog Distilleries epitomizes the inefficiency, the ineptitude, the rot in state-owned enterprises. And I say this with all seriousness, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even in the distillation of alcohol, the Ghanaian state is making losses. Mr. Speaker, if you go to my constituency, capital of Yeji, the woman operating the blue kiosk does not make losses from selling alcohol. But the Ghanaian state, even in operating an alcohol business, consistently incurs losses. Mr. Speaker, Gehog also epitomizes a challenge we have had as a nation state. And Mr. Speaker, I am happy both the majority leader and the minority leader, both of them are in the chamber now. Mr. Speaker, the audit service, the Ghana Audit Service, that audited the accounts of Gehog Distilleries, has no mandate under the law to audit the accounts of companies. The Parent Act at 584, Section 11, does not give the audit service the power to audit companies. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the challenges that arises when the nation state is not thorough. At the time Act 584 was passed, all these companies were corporations and therefore covered by the law. When we turn them into companies, we did not amend the Audit Service Act to reflect the new status of these bodies. And therefore, they have continued to illegally, in my opinion, to audit these companies. Indeed, some companies have challenged the authority of the audit service to audit them. And so, Mr. Speaker, this House must take this very serious. If we want the audit service to audit state-owned companies, as opposed to corporations, authorities, and other statutory bodies, we must say so. And we must bring a bill to amend Act 584 to give the audit service that power. Other than that, these companies will have to be audited by auditors appointed by the boards of the companies as provided for in the company's code, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is also important in looking at GIHOP distilleries, GIHOP distilleries also epitomizes the total disrespect for audit and financial time frames by state-owned companies. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the Public Financial Management Act, the Companies Code, and good corporate governance, accounts of companies should be audited latest by end of Q2. We have come across state-owned companies and organizations whose accounts have never been audited for 3 years or more. We totally have a disregard for audit time frames, and it doesn't augur well for this country. It is therefore not surprising that the Ministry of Finance has run into a challenge with the World Bank over auditing of a facility that the Ministry of Education utilized. We as a people must begin to take seriously auditing time frames, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to bring to the notice that your committee found that the financial, and I quote from paragraph 23, that for the year 2020, the auditors gave a qualified approval of GIHOP distilleries. And this is a serious matter. Give you a qualified approval. It just that your accounts fall short of the standard. And so it is important that this is noted. Important, Mr. Speaker, that companies, they must be very conscious of what it says. If you set up a commercial company, only yardstick for that company is profitability, efficiency, and utilization of assets. In the case of GIHOP distilleries, Mr. Speaker, as stated in paragraph 25, GIHOP distilleries increased employment from 169 in 2017 to 552 in 2020, whilst the company was making consistent losses year after year. When they appeared before your committee, the ranking member told the chief executive that GIHOP distilleries is not YEA. It is only YEA that has the mandate to create jobs with no relationship to profitability. We must, state organizations must be run efficiently, effectively, profitably to return a dividend to the Ghanaian state. The Ghanaian state can then use this process for its social interventions. Commercial companies are not set up as social intervention vehicles. Mr. Speaker, it is also important to reiterate that the Ghanaian state refused to patronize the products of GIHOP distillery, even during the COVID period. GIHOP distilleries produced the best sanitizer on the market. A lot of private sector entities were patronizing. GIHOP distilleries brought samples, donations to most state institutions, the presidency, this House, Parliament. They brought samples, we used them, we refused to patronize them. We went outside to buy sanitizers. What is it that the Ghanaian state refuses to sanitize, to patronize the products of its own entities, but rather will go and buy from private sectors? Mr. Speaker, the issues are many, but because of limited time, I will just make a last comment. We also found that Gihok Distilleries did not even have an impairment provision in its financials. Mr. Speaker, this is contrary to international financial reports. When you have huge debtors, when you have and you don't have an impairment provision. Mr. Speaker, the management of state entities, it is high time we professionalize the management of state entities and stop on both sides using state institutions as thank you for political activists and political operatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, the motion has been moved and seconded. It's now before the House. I'm inviting two from each side. Let me Manson Kwata, are you ready to take the mic? Let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gihok Distilleries is also one of the initiatives which is being touted to help the Ghanaian economy be developed as an industrialized country. For now, Gihok is doing well in terms of its products, having about 25 products to its credit, of which is also exporting some of them, and also having local patronage. Gihok, if given opportunity, can grow the economy, expand its base to absorb more of the young people to get employment. Mr. Speaker, Gihok has the potential to have export drive, whereby the needed foreign exchange, which have been used to import most of these alcoholic beverages, can cease one day, and therefore Gihok, once properly managed, can be on the edge of helping Ghana to diversify its economy in terms of exports. However, Gihok is having its own challenges, but I don't believe that it's so undaunted that we cannot surmount it and put the company in its proper perspective. We have declining in profitability, particularly when in 2019-2020, the COVID issue and all industries and firms were declining in terms of its productivity. Gihok at the same time was having high direct costs in its operations, on which note Gihok was also a chance to have most of its profits dwindling in administrative and other financial charges. Mr. Speaker, debt also increased from the average of 14.6% to 32%. If you look at paragraph 14 and from 18 and 19. Mr. Speaker, if you look at paragraph 18, it says that the committee observed that the amount of debt in the capital structure increased from 14.6% in 2018 to 32% in 2020. The debt equity ratio also worsened from 17% in capital employed in 2018 to 49% in 2020. This is risk attached to the company and very sensitive to its earnings, because when you have more debt and you are paying more interest, it means that your available net capital that will go to your shareholders is also reduced. However, I may want to make this point that the fact that a company may have more debt doesn't mean that the company is off its track. The point is that the company may be paying more debt, but if you're able to sustain the debt and you pay off that debt, anything that is left over goes to your shareholders. Mr. Speaker, the liquidity of the company was good, despite these challenges in financing. The working capital of the company shows that the assets that the current assets of the company compared to its liabilities were in good shape, as well as its revenue growth. Or look at paragraph 12. The company saw a good growth in its revenue. For example, in 2018, the revenue strength of the company was 62.57 million, and in 2019, it grew to 64.77 million. In 2020, it grew to 70.6 million. And in 2021, it grew to 76.6 million. That tells you that GIWOC is having a good prospect to prepare the country to a very good height. Mr. Speaker, despite these things, I believe that if the Ghanaian market patronize the GIWOC products as we saw in the company financial statement, where a good number of the company products like sanitizers, water that we're producing, were not absorbed and consumed by the Ghanaian companies or Ghanaian enterprises. Rather, they were importing some of these goods. If you are to put the company in good shape and the internal corporations and companies are taking care of these products from GIWOC internally, then it means that you will have the market to produce more and earn more for the company. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, GIWOC is making good use of our local farm products. If we encourage GIWOC and Ghanaian scientists and researchers to make good use of our local products and research into it, and GIWOC is going to make good use of these farm products, it's also going to help our farmers to also produce more and expand our farms and employ more young men who are unemployed to get into the job market. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by saying that it's not all the time that you have to see our corporations and companies in bad lights, but rather you have to see them with good eye and see to it that the challenges that is facing these companies, we have to get them out and position them. And I believe GIWOC is one of those stars that can one day become a very big company that can help the country to absorb most of our teaming youth who are not getting jobs, to get jobs, help our farmers to produce more through research by using the local products. I believe it will help GIWOC to move the economy, export more, earn more dollars, and give the company opportunity to wind it off from imports of foreign alcoholic beverages, which we are capable to produce in our local industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Let me now come to member for Wa Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion. Mr. Speaker, listening to the presentations by both the chairman and the ranking, it reminds me of the challenges we face all along with state enterprises. It hurts that you see a state endeavor like Ghana Airways, Ghana Railways, and all the others that belong to the states just fizzle out to nothingness because management is poor, inefficient, and there is a direct attempt by individuals to benefit themselves than to benefit the state. This situation, GIWOC situation, is just a clear example of such a failed enterprise. Mr. Speaker, I would like you to investigate, to call for an investigation of a company that has all the potential to make profits, but consistently make the losses. I would like you to call for an investigation about the fact that we are told that the finances of the company is not affected despite the losses because of bank overdrafts, consistent bank overdrafts that are rising over years, and yet returns are very poor. And eventually you find that you have the company eventually coming to its knees because of huge investment in personnel. Mr. Speaker, it will be important for you to call for an investigation why from 2018 you have only 169 people engaged to work in that company, rising as much as 552 people. Was it because of the need to expand? Was it because of the need for them to do much more than they are doing and we cannot see the impact? Why this is happening? This Speaker, it's important that we demonstrate enough patriotism for Ghana. We have started independence, or we started independence with a lot of countries.
They are doing very well. Small companies are blossoming to be bigger ones. Jobs are created, people are employed. And it comes to Ghana, the companies are dying and individuals are benefiting out of it only in a small manner. And then we die and the companies don't exist anymore. I think that this is an example that we can demonstrate that we are serious about what is happening to our state enterprises. And I would like to indulge the speakers, create your indulgence to make a direct response to the cry by the ranking member for some investigations to be done, other than the investigations, the financial investigations done by the auditors they have chosen themselves. That an independent investigation be done there, and some punishment should be given to people who may have been deliberately causing these losses. Mr. Speaker, it's important so that we can save this company and to save the future generations. Because if we come here and reports are read, we adopt the reports, we report, and then it goes to sleep, it means nothing. Something has to be done. And I call on you to call for an investigation so that concretely we can say that Parliament, because of our effort, some benefit has come to give up. Mr. Speaker, I call on you to do something about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Minister responsible for state enterprises, will you say something?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to.
Very well. So, Honorable Minister, if you may hold on, let me hear from our friend, member for South Dari.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to add my voice to the motion regarding the adoption of the report in question. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I wish to comment particularly on paragraph 26 of the report. Mr. Speaker, the terms of this paragraph is very instructive, that even though as a state institution that engage in the production of hand sanitizers and COVID-19 products, which as a state we could patronize, we did not. And I know that as a house we spent a lot of money procuring some of these products from other entities. And so I think it's one of the key ways by which we can patronize goods and services of our own state institutions to make them profitable. The report indicates clearly that they are not making profit. And I believe that if Ministry of Health had focused on procuring some of their products, would have put them into profit. And so it's an important guide to the House. Then two, I heard the ranking raise the issue of the legality of the audit of the firm by the audit service. And he referenced particularly Section 11 of the law. Yes, I agree that Section 11 of the law in some other terms reference corporations. But we have subsequently, by legislation, established other institutions, not name them corporations, by companies. So the relevance of Section 11 and Section 14 of Act 584 is still applicable to them. Indeed, Speaker, if I may read Section 14 of the law in question, with your permission. Speaker, it says this: auditing of statutory corporation, Section 14, subsection 1. In respect of the accounts of a statutory corporation, a state enterprise, or a public commercial institution operating under its own enactment, the Auditor General or any person appointed by him shall, upon the examination of the accounts of the body or institution, express its opinion as to whether the accounts present fairly financial information in accordance with the applicable statutory provisions, stated accounting policies of the government, and is in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards and essentially consistent with that of the preceding year. So the essence is that we may not have, it's a de minimis that we may not have changed the name from corporation to company, but the law establishing the audit service still mandates the audit service and the Auditor General to audit the accounts of statutory bodies, state agencies, or agencies that the state has interest in, pursuant to Section 14 and Section 11 of the law. And so I just want to draw the House attention to the fact that even though some entities may be raising the matter, the Audit Service has the authority in law to audit the accounts in accordance with Act 584 for the opportunity.
Very well. May I now come to leadership?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, whilst I speak in support of the adoption of the committee's report, and I'm a member of the committee, I believe that next time the committee must go further to make far-reaching recommendations. It's not just enough to assess profitability or otherwise, but what is it that we can do to support the entity to be profitable? And I'm particularly happy that the minister responsible for state enterprises is here. And Mr. Speaker, I refer you to observations of the committee's report, unnumbered page. It reads, Mr. Speaker, probably let me bring you to paragraph 25, rather, what the Honorable Dr. Rashid Pelpo raised. And Minister, we will need you to come back to this House to report on some action you are taking. Mr. Speaker, it reads, the committee noted with concern the increase in employee numbers from 169 at the beginning of 2017 to 552. There can be no justification for this anywhere. That you want an entity to be profitable, you are not mindful of productivity, you are just increasing the numbers for increasing sake. How can an entity like GIHOC have employee population of 552? Anybody running it, if it was his private enterprise, will he do that? And Mr. Speaker, we should compare them. If you take GIHOC today, let's compare it to any other private entity like Casapreco, which is doing very well, and probably in the same similar products. You cannot increase staff numbers from 169 to 552. So, Minister, we will need you to come back and tell us what steps you are taking, because there must be a relationship between those numbers and productivity. Even Ghana, part of our problem is the pretense of a bloated public service. We don't have the courage to downsize our public service. And then a private entity. Mr. Speaker, my honest view, what business has the government of Ghana in producing alcohol? What business? The government should go and provide an enabling environment for some private sector person. No, but what business have government got doing producing alcohol? What business have government got? List it as part of your divestiture state enterprises and make sure that you give it out to a viable private sector Ghanaian. Casapreco is a Ghanaian entrepreneur who is doing well. Why must the state even be putting money into GIHOC? Then, finally, Mr. Speaker, my other observation is captured under paragraph 23. And then the Honorable Dafemeko have answered the other question as to whether the Auditor General can audit GIHOC or not. That should settle the matter. Once it's a state-owned enterprise, there are state resources, public resources invested in it. I believe that the Auditor General is empowered under Article 187 to be able to look into their books. But, Mr. Speaker, what is worrying is what the committee captures as qualified opinion from the auditors. And it reads, the committee was unhappy that the financial statement of the company for the 2020 financial year was a qualified opinion. Those of them who know accounting better. So if it is a qualified opinion and they provide an explanation that the basis of their qualified opinion was that we are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about the debtors and creditors balance in the company statement of financial provision as at 31st December 2019. So why should we even proceed when the auditors tell you that they have expressed a qualified opinion? Mr. Speaker, lack of transparency. It means the board and management of GIHOC is not forthcoming with evidence for their books to be examined into. So I'm even at a difficulty that the committee will look at it. They should have thrown them away as not being sued for purpose for our inquiry. A qualified opinion, as I understand, will mean that even the board chairman shouldn't have signed the financial statement. Then worst of all, you have a financial statement of 2020, which is only ready in 2022. So, Mr. Speaker, the GIHOC case, whilst we should approve this, the Minister for State Enterprises must explain to us what he is doing to make GIHOC viable, what he is doing to make GIHOC efficient and productive. I cannot justify increasing employee numbers from 169 to 555. If it was any person's own enterprise, you won't do this. So don't do this to the state of Ghana, because you find the state as a weak grandfather. That's not acceptable. Mr. Speaker, which entity in Ghana will produce gin? Leader says, because I don't drink alcohol. Then you have 555 employees just at GIHOC there. Mr. Speaker, it used to be under my watch as Minister for Trade. Essentially not these numbers at all. So you owe us an explanation, the ballooning of the numbers. And as I said, even Ghana, part of our problem is with compensation as a significant percentage of our revenue going into it. It's because our public service needs a downsizing, but we don't have men with courage to do it. Our public service is over bloated, but don't extend this to the private sector. No, you can't just wake up and then you have this minimum employees, then within this short period, you increase it. Then, Mr. Speaker, their books must be looked into properly. With these words, Mr. Speaker, I associate myself with the report. Thank you.
Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity to also associate myself with the report on the Committee of Employment, Social Welfare, State Enterprises on the audited financial statement of the Ghana Industrial Holding Company for the years 2019 and 2020. Speaker, I guess before I commence, since we are into some lamentations, we would want to know the mandate of the GIHOC distilleries. What is the mandate? Is it for them to provide employment to Ghanaians, or they exist as a sovereign to make profit? What is the core mandate? Unfortunately, even though you did that for the GMPC, here we are not so set. So one is not too sure of the mandate of Gihok distilleries. Mr. Speaker, I know that in the socialist countries, state-owned enterprises are set up primarily to offer employment. They are set up primarily, I'm qualifying it, to offer employment to the citizens. In 1958, when these enterprises came up, the focus was on the provision of employment. Today, I think we are departing from that, and indeed we must depart and refocus on the profitability of the enterprises, apart from offering employment. The primary focus should be on profitability. And that is why I even think that for these state enterprises, we should have a separate committee in this House to deal with them. We have linked it with Committee on Employment and Social Welfare. Your focus is on employment and social welfare, and not on the profitability of such ventures. I would think that if we still want to hold on to these state enterprises, then we need one committee to be dealing with state enterprises. The Speaker, that should be the focus and that should be the remit of any such committee that is created. But, Mr. Speaker, we have walked this path before. These enterprises created by the state in the area of transportation, for instance. We have seen the collapse of Ghana Railways. We are trying to bring it back again. We have seen the collapse of Ghana Airways. We have seen the collapse of OSA. In the area of transportation, they have all collapsed, even though private enterprises involved in them are making huge profits. Our focus was on employment. And that is why we should recline and do what is necessary. State farms we created. Farmers, individual farmers making huge profits. Cocoa farmers, the state went into cocoa farming, huge losses. So it's like, well, this is state property, this is government property, let's all eat from it. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to explain. Gihok. And I believe the Honorable Dr. Kapna Donko would remember. I guess the Honorable Dafiabapo is too young to know anything related to Gihok distilleries. So those days, growing up, the most popular brand that was coming from Gihok was Okuku Seku. The Honorable Atasia, that's why if you know that. It was Okuku Seku, and everywhere in Ghana, it was more or less considered a national asset. Those days, Apetashi was not known. Okuku Seku was everywhere. Incidentally, I refer to the national chairman of NDC, my bosom friend, as Okuku Seku. He also calls me the same thing, Okuku Seku. That is how we refer to each other. I don't drink those hard schnapps. But the Speaker, those days, Gihok distilleries was very, very profitable. So we must really investigate why all these state enterprises. We had, in Kumasi, for instance, we had ink and chalk factory. We had a factory in pens. We had a factory that was into the jute manufacturing, and a shoe factory. All of them collapsed overnight because, one, technology, and two, the fact that everybody thought that this is a state enterprise, we should be eating from that. Speaker, so there are legitimate concerns that we should raise relating to the operations and activities, and indeed even the administration of such state enterprises. I would want to associate with the issue raised by one of my colleagues who has spoken ahead of me. Mr. Speaker, I think Article 187 of the Constitution is clear. And 187 of the Constitution provides, 187(2), it says the public accounts of Ghana and of all public offices, including the courts, the central and local government administrations of the universities, and public institutions of like nature, of any public corporation or other body or organization established by an act of parliament, shall be audited and reported on by the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, that is the law. That's the parent law. So if any statute has made any provision that they should not come under the purview of the Auditor General, then, of course, Article 1 Clause 2 of the Constitution will kick in, which provides, Mr. Speaker, with respect, I'll quote that for the elucidation of my colleague. 1(2) then says, this Constitution shall be the supreme law of Ghana, and any other law found to be inconsistent with any provision of this Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. If the Constitution provides that the public corporation should come under the scrutiny of the Auditor General, and you are saying that a statute exists which provides an exemption, that statute is null and void after the promulgation of this Constitution. So they cannot run away from the supervision of the Auditor General. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with my colleague. And what is the remit of the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises, as provided for under Order 1841 of our old standing orders? Order 1841 says, Mr. Speaker, again with respect, to remind my colleagues serving on the committee, the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises shall review and study on a continuing basis the operation of state enterprises with a view to determining their economy and efficiency, and also deal with matters relating to employment and social welfare generally. So that is your remit. So what business do you have if it is not a state enterprise? It is a state enterprise, it must be audited, and that is why 2 then says it is the duty of that committee to examine the reports and accounts of public enterprises. What reports and accounts are you submitting yourself to? It's a report submitted by the Auditor General. The Auditor General, that is your charge. So if you go and they tell you that you are not under the Auditor General, remind them of the imperatives of Article 187(2). So they cannot run away. And indeed, when your report, Mr. Speaker, their report is telling us that the Auditor General said they were unable, and I'm quoting, we are unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about the debtors and creditors balance in the company's statement of financial position as of 31st December 2019. It is the Auditor General who, under 187, should set the standard. This is the way to prepare your books and submit before. If you're not conforming, it is for them to tell them that you are not able to audit your accounts because you have neglected to fulfill the obligations imposed by Article 187(4), which says the public accounts of Ghana and of all other persons or authorities referred to in Clause 2 of this article shall be kept in such form as the Auditor General shall approve. So the Auditor General sets the standard for you, the benchmarks for you, and refuse to conform. They should not have anything to do with the accounts of that institution. As simple as that. So, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises, for this, that we are not doing this because you refuse to submit to the Auditor General and report same to us, and then what to do would then be enforced by this House. That's the way to go. Because we cannot be dealing with partially prepared reports, not submitted to the Auditor General for their own consideration and report to us. What's your business then? So, Mr. Speaker, in this regard, I think the fault lies with us. We have observed any deficiencies and any deficits in the performance of their duties as far as submitting to the Auditor General is concerned. Reports sent to us. And then the House then would be in a position to deal with the matter frontally. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not too sure that I can agree with the committee when they so lamely submit and in such a very obsequious manner come to us that, oh, we are not able to do this because this was not done. This is complete negligence of responsibility. With the greatest respect to the committee. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the time being. And I guess another time may offer itself for us to deal with this matter. Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Minister, may I hear you?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to comment on the GEHOC's report before the House. Mr. Speaker, let me first draw the attention of members that GEHOC, as it stands, the name should be GEHOC Distilleries Company Limited. On the cover page of the report, I see Ghana Industrial Holding Company Limited, which is not the name of the entity. That is not the name of the entity as it stands today. Just like the Ghana Commercial Bank that has been incorporated as GCB Bank and similar entities. GEHOC is now GEHOC Distilleries Company Limited. So members' attention is drawn to that. Mr. Speaker, I am happy today we have the opportunity to scrutinize state enterprises 1 in 10, as is happening now, because the President has had a vision to ensure that spotlight is put on the state enterprises to make them profitable when they are where they have been established for commerciality, and to make them efficient when it is otherwise. So, for my observation in this House, we have seen the scrutiny brought to bear by the enterprises at a level that has never happened in the past. And I commend the Committee on Employment, Social Welfare, and State Enterprises for bringing this report to the House. Mr. Speaker, it's an opportunity to highlight GEHOC as one of the enterprises Ghana had pursued in the past and currently pursues to fill in a space of what you will say producing made in Ghana goods for our consumption and potentially for export. In recent days, the import-driven economy has been highlighted, and I think we should commend GEHOC for what they are doing. I would like to take the opportunity to highlight some of the products which we all know are in the market and are competing very well with imported products into our market space. Mr. Speaker, GEHOC holds the brands of this Madingo, very popular Madingo brand. And GEHOC also has the Herb Afrique brand. It also holds the brand Takai, which Castle Bridge, and now also have Meridian Water in the market. These are all made in Ghana goods we should all make efforts to patronize. When you go to hotels, the international hotels especially, they stock a lot of foreign alcoholic beverages, and it's not good for us. So let's support GHOC to penetrate that market. On the issue of employees, Mr. Speaker, permit me to say that GHOC in 2017 was having, that is in 2016, was having about 169 employees, and today 552. I know for the information of the House that when they were having 169 employees, they were not really very productive. And even salary levels then, there were some of the workers taking 300 Ghana cedis and 250 Ghana cedis, and really idling until the management changed and they established a business development unit, beefed up the market and sales units, and started doing a lot of marketing of the GHOC product and positioning the company very well on the market today. So I would say that the 552 employees today have positioned the company to be poised to look at even external markets. GHOC is looking beyond the borders of Ghana as we speak. And I would say that we should support this effort. Mr. Speaker, we note that the name of the committee, that is Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises. The employment itself, I'm not sure we are to check that employment goes down. We have to check that employment, rather, state enterprises give more employment. The caveat is that they should be profitable and they should be growing and they should be, for me, paying well. Because a country that doesn't pay its employees very well only end up creating, contributing to poverty. So, Mr. Speaker, when the committee notes that the employment of GHOC, Mr. Speaker, when the committee notes that the employment of GHOC is increasing, I think it should be a case of applauding GHOC for contributing to employment and not contributing to unemployment. Mr. Speaker, I want to draw the committee's attention to it. And then, Mr. Speaker, GHOC is positioned today to be listed on the stock market. All the elements that are required for a company to be listed on the stock market are there, because for the past 4 or 5 years, the company has been positioned to be to qualify to get listed on the stock market. Their audited account is up to date, as the reports indicate, and so we should all be looking forward to buying shares of GHOC and be able to capitalize it to take the opportunities available to the company. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion.
Very well. So, honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is, all those in favour of the motion listed 7 in today's order paper say aye. All those against say no. Honourable members, it's obvious. The ayes have it. The motion is hereby adopted. Now we move to statements. We have 2 statements. Two statements. One, we were supposed to do that one yesterday, and today we have another one. So we will, today appears to be, yes, we will handle each one of them. So Doc, we'll come to you, but today is Journalism Day. Is that so? So, Honourable Member for Menchia North, let's hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you to today I rise to deliver a statement on the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. Mr. Speaker, the 1992 Republican Constitution guarantees freedom and independence of the media in Article 1621. The mass media exists to inform, educate, and entertain the public on issues of public interest. The journalists and other practitioners, accordingly, should have the freedom to publish whatever, subject to the relevant laws they deem fit. Impunity for crimes against journalists is a major concern around the world. It is for this reason that the United Nations General Assembly, at its 68th session in 2013, declared November 2nd as the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. This was done in memory of two French journalists who were killed in Mali in 2013. In Ghana, Mr. Speaker, many journalists have suffered attack and gone through excruciating pain over the years, and the impunity for crimes against journalists continue unabated. What is more worrying is the fact that invariably, the victims of such crimes do not get justice, largely because of the lack of financial wherewithal to pursue legal actions against their perpetrators. In other instances, do not have the means to even seek medical treatment. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about crimes or attacks against journalists, the unfortunate killing of Ahmed Swale comes in mind. Almost 4 years after the investigative journalist was killed on January 16, 2019, the perpetrators are yet to be brought to justice. One cannot also gloss over the gruesome killing of the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the GJA almost 10 years ago. The people involved in the killing, as of yet, none have been found. Journalism is not a crime. The lives of journalists are important to us. Mr. Speaker, the unfortunate attack on journalists in the country are a major reason why Ghana has dropped in the World Press Freedom Index compiled by Reporters Sans Frontières, that is, Reporters Without Boundary, falling 30 places in the ranking to the 60th position. Mr. Speaker, the combined effect of the spate of attacks against and the rampant arrest of journalists, as well as the backsliding of Ghana in the World Press Freedom Index, sending wrong signals, especially to the international media watchers who still regard Ghana as a reference point for press freedom and democracy in Africa. Ghana must be seen to be working hard to reclaim her position on the World Press Freedom Index. We must not fall behind in the league of tables of free media systems in Africa and the world. Mr. Speaker, as we mark the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists today, I believe it is the wish of the Ghana Journalists Association to entreat Parliament to help in any way possible to ensure that media practitioners go about their duties without fear or favor. This can be achieved by ensuring the safety and security of media practitioners and giving them all the necessary support they need to do their job. Mr. Speaker, I've been in touch with the GJA, and I believe that on such day, the GJA would want to restate their solidarity with all journalists who are fallen victim to attacks and arrests in their line of duty, and assure them and the Ghanaians in general that the GJA will continue to pursue justice for them and also defend press freedom at all times. Parliament may also want to assure media practitioners that they stand shoulder to shoulder with them. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that Parliament is enjoined by the provision of Article 12 to uphold the fundamental human rights and freedom, which includes the right of journalists to practice their profession in peace and in a serene environment as enshrined in the 1992 Republican Constitution. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to deliver this statement.
Very well. Honourable members, I will only invite 2 contributors from each side, and that will include leadership. 2 contributors from each side, and that will include leadership. Yes. Yes, Honourable Member for Wa Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start by thanking the maker of the statement for his thoughtfulness and determination to get this matter clear in the minds of all of us, that journalists are not our enemies, they are our friends, they help in the development of the state, they are the fourth estate of the realm, and should be supported in whatever they do. They help in the development of the state by touching the conscience of people whenever it matters. And so, for a democracy like ours, which is exemplary in the world and in Africa, we need to have a different approach to how we handle journalists. As he recounted, in which some journalists are hurt, some missing, some killed, obviously, shows that we have a long gap to close in the way we handle our journalists and in the way we handle information flow. So I want to use this opportunity to urge on all of us, all Ghanaians, to see the enterprise as a key factor in determining how we monitor our development. Because individuals left alone can do all the worst things you can imagine in the world. But individuals, when they are watched and reported on, are very careful about how they handle their own affairs, and indeed how they handle the affairs of the state. So these are people who have volunteered on their own, many of them not paid, public, private citizens, working for the state, working for themselves, exposing the ills of the land, extolling the goodness of our people. These are people who we should hold in high regard, not look at them with disrespect and with hatefulness to the extent that you sometimes, hurt them to the extent of taking their lives. So Mr. Speaker, the statement has said other things, but I'm more interested in the fact that we need to work on the situation where, as a nation, seen as the oasis of peace, we should, despite the challenges we are facing in our development strides, make sure we take the first stride in handling our journalists to the point that they can be comfortable being here, and Ghana can be a source of educating others, so that in the end we will have our journalists live in peace, and our people glory in having them live with us. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I thank the Maker once again.
Yes. Let him come to Abuakwa South.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for this very important occasion in which we're trying to extol press freedom and the importance of journalism in the realm. Honourable Speaker, let's make a very strong statement to the fact that by the tenet of the Constitution 1992, we have press freedom in no uncertain terms. And if you pay regard to Article 1621, it is clear and it provides as follows: freedom and independence of the media are hereby guaranteed. That's a strong democratic driver. Because if you have a democracy so-called, in fact, they are called the fourth estate of the realm, and you cannot express yourself in trying to hold the government accountable, what a poor democracy it will be without the dimension of journalism, and by extension, the services of a journalist. Honorable Speaker, if you even pay regard to the body that is supposed to superintend the affairs of the media, which is the National Media Commission, Article 173 of the Constitution is clear that they don't have control over the journalist and how he functions. May I quote with respect? Subject to Article 167 of this Constitution, the National Media Commission shall not exercise any control or direction over the professional functions of a person engaged in the production of newspapers or any other means of communication. It seems to me that by the spirit of the 1992 Constitution, journalism is not fettered in any way, and they have the freedom to practice their trade. Honorable Speaker, one other issue of consequence is that it shouldn't cost you any money to establish a media house or outlet in terms of licensing and the rest of them. That is Article 1623. There shall be no impediment to the establishment of private press or media, and in particular, there shall be no law requiring a person to obtain a license as a prerequisite to the establishment or operation of a newspaper, journal, or any other media for mass communication or information. Honorable Speaker, I believe that any set of freedoms that are elastic in its nature can also be a problem. And as a lawyer, I'm concerned about the laws of defamation, which is to say that the Constitution never envisaged that you have an elastic right without any boundaries of decency when it comes to the dignity and the reputation of other people. I've had serious issues of prosecuting defamation cases. And because the Constitution says that you can just, without paying for it, establish a newspaper outlet, you have all manner of newspapers mushrooming. And they write whatever they want to write. In fact, they could so write about you to demonize you, and not everybody wants to waste his time in court. A few people are determined to save their names so that they go to court and defend themselves. And right, Speaker, guess what? After you've won a defamation suit and you want to go into execution, that is to say, have the fruit of the judgment, you only find a typewriter, not even a computer, in an obscure corner somewhere. So that it's a Pyrrhic victory. You went to court for nothing. Because the one who has defamed you has nothing to his name. That is a little challenge we have about some levels of journalism. That should not be permitted. In fact, the criminal libel law was repealed. That is to say, in those days, if somebody wrote very ugly and very terrible things about another person with a criminal intent to injure his reputation, you could go to jail. And whilst we were pushing the frontiers of freedom, we said that the criminal libel law should be repealed, and it was all repealed. I'm tempted to believe that when most journalists realized that they could not be punished in the criminal realm by going to jail, they were freed with the impunity to defame others. Honorable Speaker, I am of the view that insofar as they are the fourth estate of the realm, let's come to terms with the fact that every level of freedom has, boundaries of decency. After all, when your name is defamed, and if you have a victory in court, a few people remember that you've won the victory. But the internet will still say that so and so and so past, you are associated with some kind of funny thing, especially when we are a journalist. As a matter of fact, we are the raw material of the journalists. They will not go and research on anything of consequence, apart from trying to find fault concerning politicians. Mr. Speaker, I celebrate the day, and I'm grateful to my colleague who put together this very seminar speech on the occasion of the World Day of Journalism. But I beg to suggest, and I believe firmly, that in trying to ply your trade and to make some money, be careful of the reputation of others, because money cannot buy the reputation of somebody. It could be a hard and long fight, like in the kind of theater we find ourselves. If somebody says that he's been a member of parliament for 3 terms and there's no fault on him, it's a serious fight for you to preserve your dignity in the midst of this witchcraft exercise called politics. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you very much for the opportunity, and more graciously, let me thank the Honorable Akwesi Kwenedu, a Member of Parliament for Manshia North, for his statement on the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. Mr. Speaker, as observed by the Chairman of the Committee on Energy, in Ghana, there is unfettered freedom and respect for the rights and independence of all media practitioners. Today must give journalists themselves an opportunity to evaluate their own performance, their contribution to our functional democracy, their contribution to our collective quest to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. But, Mr. Speaker, as reported by the UN Secretary General, some 70 journalists have been killed this year in the course of their work and in the course of duty of contributing to a more enlightened world. Mr. Speaker, whilst we hail Ghana for providing the opportunities, even going beyond the frontiers of Article 162, 167. In Ghana today, Mr. Speaker, there are as many FM stations as there are television stations that is given opportunity to vent expression. So the wheels of freedom are rolling. But, Mr. Speaker, as observed by him in his second paragraph, we demand justice to the killing of Ahmed Swale, and therefore whatever investigative or prosecutorial body is handling this matter must discharge this responsibility with some credibility to give assurance to practicing journalists that they would not just wither away their lives in their service, and then when they die unnatural deaths, there is nothing by way of support, even for the family, no compensation for them, but more importantly, the circumstance associated with the death itself raises eyebrows. And I think that it's important that we celebrate and commend the Ghana Journalists Association and to urge them, what we need is a commitment of government to continue to respect those freedoms. Mr. Speaker, I recall what is popularly described as the Windhoek Declaration on ensuring and promoting media pluralism. But, Mr. Speaker, in Ghana, 3 issues get my attention as we observe this day. I still believe that Ghana needs a new broadcasting bill or law to regulate broadcasting generally in Ghana. As we speak today, the GBC, in the morning they say they are state broadcaster, in the evening they are a public broadcaster. We need a law that situates GBC as a public broadcaster akin to what we have like the BBC of the United Kingdom. We need to define the parameters so that we know the difference between a state broadcaster, a public broadcaster, a commercial broadcaster, and a community-related broadcaster. In Ghana here, no parameters are drawn, and we need to get that. Mr. Speaker, finally, as the Honorable Atachia have observed, social media, unregulated social media, its relationship with rights and freedoms, and more importantly, on reputation. It's unregulated. Today, anything can be published on anybody. By the time you redeem your reputation, it's already in tatters. Yet, we have no law in Ghana that regulates content within the social media environment. And it has become a toxic source of misinformation and disinformation. Probably we need to reflect upon it. So, Mr. Speaker, let me once again commend the maker of the statement, and we all commit, including this Parliament, to contribute to end impunity for crimes against journalists. And we all must make solid commitments to support the media, to practice freely, to contribute to our democracy, and to observance of those freedoms. But undoubtedly, as observed by the Honorable Atachia, Ghana is comparable even to the United States and United Kingdom when it comes to access to media space for freedom of expression. Every day in the morning, and again, Mr. Speaker, my observation, we spend too much time even talking than working and acting in the country. In the morning, every other day, you hear commentary on every subject, people knowledgeable on every subject. It's in Ghana. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to find a way to regulate the social media environment because, as I've observed, it's become a major source of misinformation and disinformation that can affect their reputations. I thank you, and I thank the maker of the statement.
Well. Honorable Leader, may you hear you?
Mr. Speaker, I also fully associate myself with the statement made by the Honorable Akosi Konedu, the Member of Parliament for Menchia North, on this day for the observation of International Day to end impunity for crimes against journalists. Speaker, I believe this is a very well-researched statement and also a well-balanced statement. The minority leader, in relating to the statement, chose to center his own submission on the unfortunate killing of Ahmed Swale. Speaker, it's a scar on the conscience of this country. And I think he's right to refer to it. But the member mentioned some other persons. 10 years ago, the president of GJA, Ashanti region, was also murdered in similar circumstances. His life should matter to us as well. His life should matter to us as well. Or is it because what happened at a particular regime is now become the postage, the other happened in another regime, that one should not be spoken about? We should be balanced in these matters. Otherwise, it's made to appear as if, oh, this happened under the NPP, so let's glorify it. This happened under the NDC, let's keep quiet about that. In both cases, lives of journalists were involved. And the lives of the two persons should matter to us. Mr. Speaker, we've traveled some distance in the practice of our democracy. Times were when even editors of newspapers were haunted. I remember some 30 or so years ago when a Catholic father was chased. People thinking that he was the editor of the Catholic Standard, brutalized and killed and thrown into the sea. They thought at the time the editor of the Catholic Standard was Palmer Buckle. And they thought that man, because he so much resembled Palmer Buckle, was Palmer Buckle. They killed him and threw his body into the sea. The Speaker, I witnessed a journalist in the conduct of the 2000 elections who was taking pictures, descended upon by soldiers, armed soldiers, and brutalized a lady journalist in Kumasi. So, Mr. Speaker, we've traveled some distance. However, there are some developments that should not escape the eyes of any objective analyst. And I guess that is what this statement is speaking to. Mr. Speaker, the Media Commission that is charged to regulate the conduct of media practitioners, captured under Article 167 of our Constitution, provides, and perhaps I should read, the functions of the National Media Commission are: 1, ensure the freedom and independence of the media for mass communication or information. And B says they should take appropriate measures to ensure the establishment and maintenance of the highest journalistic standards in the mass media, including the investigation, mediation, and settlement of complaints made against or by the press or other mass media. The Speaker, the Media Commission, regardless of their intentions, they are toothless in trying to call media practitioners who stray to order. Mr. Speaker, we need the media, but the media should not also assume positions that are otherwise abhorrent to our society. These days, anybody who has a microphone before him or her believes that he has the power to descend on any person in this country. And if he's called to order, he refuses to submit. Mr. Speaker, some media persons in this country are coming under these characterizations. Every morning, they have one person to attack. And they tell you with threats. They have no evidence. You complain to the Media Commission. You have no evidence. Can you apologize to the person and retract it? He tells them that I will not do that. In the meantime, he has torn your image, your hard-won image, into shreds. So, Mr. Speaker, I think there should be a counterbalance. And if we have to amend the Constitution to bring some of them under control, so be it. People should have the freedom. And indeed, the Constitution in Article 1621 provides that freedom, that unfettered freedom. Freedom and independence of the media are hereby guaranteed. The Speaker, the media assist us in Parliament to ensure responsibility and accountability of the government to the people of this country. So in that regard, the media should be partners of Parliament. They should be our allies in prosecuting the agenda of transparency and accountability. And when some of them stray and indeed fall foul of the law, you want to encourage them to realign, and they openly refuse. Mr. Speaker, that certainly can be challenging. And I want to urge the media practitioners to use this occasion to do serious introspection, to call those of them who are falling foul to the law on a daily basis to order. The Minority Leader raised a very interesting issue. Every morning, people engaging in talking, spending more time talking than working. I guess it means engaged on productive ventures. Mr. Speaker, social commentary is allowed everywhere. But Ghana is in a unique situation. A journalist publishes something. And instead of allowing people with the relevant competence to comment on what the journalist has written, the journalists themselves go to radio stations and they are lending credence to what they have written. Where does this obtain? It's like I want to fill in the gaps. Papers I want to continue tomorrow, today on the radio and television stations. Mr. Speaker, this situation does not exist anywhere. You're a journalist, you publish something, it should lend itself to criticism or evaluation by people with the relevant competencies. But where we have people, as the minority leader stated, who claim to know from A to Z on every subject matter, that certainly is unacceptable. And they want to foist their own ideas on society and set the agenda on a daily basis for this country. That cannot be acceptable. You're a journalist, you write, you publish. Let people with the relevant competences also assess what you have written. I think that is what obtains everywhere. So let's do serious introspection. I keep saying that I'm no angel. I fall foul of the law sometimes. I lend myself to criticism. We criticize ourselves to reform society. But we don't criticize to destroy, as some of them have made a penchant to doing on a daily basis. So, Mr. Speaker, this should be a day for introspection. What has been done to some practicing journalists abhorrent. The society should rise in unison to condemn it. But what some of them also do to society, individuals in society, should equally be critiqued so that we can grow together as a society, as one people in one country with a common destiny, as General Champong used to say. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We take the second statement from Dr. Mark Nawani on the need to manufacture our own vaccines. Doc, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for permitting me to make this relevant statement on the need to manufacture vaccine in the country, especially in this post-COVID era, where the word vaccine is synonymous with human survival. Right, Honorable Speaker, a vaccine is a substance used to stimulate the production of antibodies and provides immunity against one or several diseases prepared from the causative agent of a disease, its products, or a synthetic substitute treated to act as an antigen without inducing the disease. A vaccine is mostly a biological preparation made from a weakened or killed forms of the microbe, its toxins, or one of its surface proteins. They are usually administered through nasal injections, but some can be administered by mouth or sprayed into the noses. Mr. Speaker, the African continent, with a population of 1.2 billion, can manufacture only 1% of its vaccine. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us a lesson that Europe, America, and Asia will not be in a hurry to supply us with vaccines in the event of a future pandemic unless their citizens got theirs first. It is therefore not surprising that more than 11 African countries have expressed the interest to go into the manufacture of vaccines, of which Ghana is one. Mr. Speaker, it is long overdue that Ghana establish a self-sustaining ecosystem for domestic vaccine production. Gavi, a vaccine alliance, is a public-private global health partnership, has been supplying vaccines for the country's expanded immunization program since 1978. The government of Ghana only pays counterpart funding. The Gavi Alliance on Vaccine will be graduating out of the country by 2027. What it means is that after 2027, Ghana will have to go to the international markets and buy from the open market millions of vaccines. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore in our national and regional interest for Ghana to join other African countries to go into vaccine manufacturing. Currently, a local vaccine manufacturing committee under the presidency has been established. A seed money of $25 million has been released for the establishment of a vaccine institute. A vaccine bill has been considered at the committee level and will soon be laid before the whole House. Mr. Speaker, without growing pharmaceutical industry and a well-functioning food and drugs authority, the government intends to facilitate the private sector to, in the short term, develop stand-alone fill and finish line and train local staff to manage it. It is expected that we will collaborate with other African countries to increase the market size and avoid unnecessary competition among ourselves. Countries can therefore leverage on the production of vaccines where they have the comparative advantage. In so doing, different countries will specialize in the production of different vaccines and will therefore complement each other. African governments will be expected to sign an uptake agreement with such continental vaccine manufacturers. Mr. Speaker, your own Health Committee of Parliament had the opportunity to visit some vaccine manufacturing facilities in Europe and the German Development Corporation, GIZ, headquarters. We observed the upstream and downstream processes. We realized that there was a need to focus on core issues such as innovative financing and enabling local and regional regulatory capacity to assure quality, critical technical elements, including skills development, technology transfer, and product development partners, good manufacturing practice, facility design, and establishment. Right Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, vaccine manufacturing is a new business area that has the potential of not only ensuring equitable access to vaccine, but bringing in much needed revenue and creating jobs. Parliament should therefore work with dispatch when issues related to vaccine manufacturing, such as the vaccine bill or resource allocation, are brought before us. It is a competition among African countries, and Ghana must be quick to carve a niche for itself in the emerging market. However, Parliament should ensure that financial resources allocated for the project are judiciously utilized. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Doc. Yes. Honorable Member for Menchia, no.
Yes.
Yes, let's hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by my deputy ranking member on the Health Committee. Mr. Speaker, the worrying effect for us now will be the year 2027, when Ghana will be out of Gavi and would have to go out there in the international market to be fighting for vaccines for our early childhood immunization programs and others. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford, however, to be going out there and buying them at the commercial rate. That would affect the process of trying to get our children immunized, and we cannot afford that. It therefore calls on us, Mr. Speaker, as we are bound with expertise in the production of manufacturers here in Ghana ourselves. COVID-19 has taught us that vaccines, in their essence, medicine for protection, can become a geopolitical tool, which we need not to be part in the center of play. Whilst we are advocating, Mr. Speaker, for self-reliance in almost everything that we do to strengthen our nation and its economy, it is my sole wish that in the areas of vaccines, Mr. Speaker, we expedite actions on that. It is of great concern and interest and a commendation to the government that a seed money of $25 million being set aside for the establishment of a vaccine institute. Based on that, a study tour was conducted by GIZ for members of the Health Committee for us to have oversight and first-hand information on how these productions, both upstream and downstream of vaccines, are done. If the knowledge so acquired and a bill being brought to the committee, Mr. Speaker, I would urge the House that we expedite action on the passage of this bill into an act so that it can afford us the opportunity to have a well-regulated environment for the production of vaccines to aid in that direction. While speaking on that, Mr. Speaker, I would also want to take the opportunity, because we would need to have a regulatory framework that will be strong enough to monitor the processes of these vaccine production. It will call for the strengthening of some agencies like the FDA, the Standards Authority, so that they would have the needed capacity to be able to do their monitoring of all of these vaccines, which is a specialized area. It will call for them having enough resources to be able to do that, to be able to train themselves, have the needed equipment to be able to perform that duty and function. It however calls for, Mr. Speaker, that if it's possible, we advocate for the decoupling of these institutions so that the retention of the IGF and the monies that go to them can be used in the direction so as to improve upon these expertise and equipment that they will probably need. On that call, Mr. Speaker, I would also want to again commend the maker of this statement, and I would add my voice and that of the House. We plea that we back in the production of vaccines for our country and its economy. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Yes. Dr. Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by the Honorable Dr. Market Nawani, MP for Nabdam constituency, on the need for Ghana to produce vaccines. And Mr. Speaker, this is a very important statement made by the Honorable Member. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, man has fought infectious diseases for centuries, and it is very critical and very clear that we cannot do without the capacity and the ability to have vaccines that will enable us fight these infectious diseases. In fact, emerging and re-emerging diseases like Ebola, COVID-19, and new ones that are yet to come up against mankind. Mr. Speaker, over the years, through our robust immunization program, Ghana has been able to fight diseases like polio, yellow fever, meningitis, even the ability to fight COVID-19 and the rest. So the desire and the need to develop our own vaccines would add up and boost our fight against infectious diseases. And in fact, evidence is there from the WHO that currently, through the use of vaccines or immunizations, about 3.5 to 5 million deaths are prevented every year because of this powerful tool of vaccines. Mr. Speaker, the need for Ghana and for Africa to develop its own vaccine has been long overdue because we have the human resource. The experts are there in Ghana. The institutions are available, like the FDA, we have Noguchi, and other bodies that we can fall on to develop our own vaccines. The problem or the major challenge has been funding. And Mr. Speaker, like the maker of the statement has made clear, that is the area we have to look at as a nation, that we provide the needed adequate funding that will enable the experts, that will enable the institutions to be able to develop our own vaccines. Mr. Speaker, as a member of the Health Committee, I was part of members that were in a stakeholder discussion on the process of developing, vaccines in the country, where we have the vaccine manufacturing committee, and I made a comment because when I looked at the list, I thought that it wasn't comprehensive enough, it wasn't inclusive enough, because I caution against, the use of, part of experts in Ghana, and I caution against partisanship in the membership, because such a body that will provide vaccines will have to be holistic. Therefore, the membership will have to look at the totality of experts we have in Ghana, devoid of partisanship, devoid of political coloration, so that we know that the Vaccine Institute that this country will come out with something that will be sustainable, not that maybe one party in power, chooses its members as experts, then another political party comes and thinks that, let's relook at the membership. So I caution against that seriously and said that we are all for it. We're all happy about whatever the need for an institution or a body that will help us produce our own vaccine, but we should be cautious and really ensure that we have a sustainable institution that can give us the needed vaccine that we need. And of course, the bill that is yet in the process to come to Parliament, I hope that we'll take the needed steps with speed and ensure that when it comes to this House, we scrutinize it. We wouldn't say because it's urgent, we just pass it anyhow, but we'll take time to go through it, to scrutinize it, and ensure that we have a law that is good in the development of vaccines. So, Mr. Speaker, I also want to commend the maker of the statement and to say that it is good as a country we develop our own vaccines and add to the world body ability to produce vaccines, because if you take bodies like Gavi, institutions like Gavi and other bodies that help us to get vaccines, we know, and it's very clear that in these economic times, a day will come where they will not be able to support us, and we'll have to depend on our own capacity and financial muscle to have our own vaccine. So I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we bring statement time to a close. Honorable member for Abrekuma North. Okay, conclude the contribution for us. So let's hear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to commend the maker of the statement for presenting something to us which we all believe is so important. If COVID has taught us anything, it is for us to be self-reliant as far as medicine is concerned. We all know that a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And for us as a nation, we must be self-reliant. We must be able to depend on ourselves, especially when there is crisis, even as we saw during the COVID. And I am happy to hear, Mr. Speaker, that the Committee on Health has done a lot of work with the bill that has been presented to the committee and is soon to be presented to the House. The Vaccine Institute bill has been worked on with the ministry and is soon to be presented to the House. Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to invest in ourselves. It's important that we invest in the manufacturing of vaccines, all the way from the vaccines that we need in our childhood to vaccines that are needed to prevent national security, just as we saw during the COVID. Sometimes we have to believe and also do well to invest in what we know will help the nation. And healthcare is something that we all believe is so critical. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also suggest that when government is making its investment and its budget this year, there should be necessary considerations made to invest in the institute, so that we would be able to get the benefits out of it. I believe that we have the ability and the capacity to be able to manufacture vaccines that are necessary for life. So, Mr. Speaker, this is just to add my voice to what has been said already, and also to commend the maker of the statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheila Bartels, which brings us to the end of statement time. We thank the makers as well as all the contributors to the two important statements. I think it's very important statement for the country's development. On that note, may I respectfully come to the leadership for any indication.
Mr. Speaker, we've exhausted all that which was scheduled for the day. I therefore move that we adjourn till tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, second the motion for adjournment. Thank you.
Very well. Honourable members, the motion for adjournment has been moved and it has been seconded. The question is all of us. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. All those against the motion, say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The House is accordingly adjourned to tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House stands adjourned.